Have you noticed how much of your life is spent justifying yourself? You explain why you made that choice, why you feel that way, why you are who you are, and yet no explanation is ever enough. The moment you finish, someone asks for more. It is as though you are on trial, endlessly defending your existence. But what if I told you that the need to explain is the very chain that keeps you bound? And that when you stop explaining yourself, not with arrogance, but with clarity, everything changes. You move from defense into freedom. Explaining is often not communication. It is an apology. It is a way of saying, please understand me, please approve of me, please accept me. And when you live like this, your life belongs not to you, but to the endless opinions of others. You shape your words to satisfy them. You shape your actions to avoid their judgment, and you become a stranger in your own skin. Yet the truth is, people will never fully understand you no matter how much you explain, for they do not see the world through your eyes. They see through their own. You cannot make others see what they are unwilling to see. You can speak endlessly, but their ears will only hear what they are ready for. So why exhaust yourself in explanation? Why rehearse arguments in your head as though the whole world is a courtroom? When you stop explaining, you stop performing. You begin to live directly without the constant detour of justification. And suddenly, a strange freedom arises. People may still misunderstand you, but their misunderstanding no longer chains you. You discover that your being is enough without footnotes or defense. We fear that without explanation, we will lose love, respect, belonging. Yet notice those who truly love you do not require endless explanations. They feel you even in silence. And those who do not truly love you cannot be convinced no matter how carefully you explain. So explanation becomes a trap, feeding the illusion that approval is something you can secure with enough words. In reality, approval is always conditional, always fleeting. Freedom is when you no longer need to purchase it. You realize that misunderstanding is part of life and you can let it be. When you no longer explain yourself, conversations change. You speak more simply. You say what you mean without decorating it with apologies. You listen without planning your defense. And you discover that many explanations you once gave were unnecessary. Silence often says more. A calm presence free of desperation carries a weight that words cannot. Imagine the tree outside your window. It does not explain its crooked branches, nor does the river apologize for its twists. They simply are, and in their being they are beautiful. You too are part of this nature. Your presence does not need a defense. This does not mean you never clarify, never communicate. It means you stop defending your existence as if it were fragile. There is a difference between expressing and explaining. Expressing is sharing, explaining is pleading. One is natural, the other is fear, and fear, you see, is what keeps you small. You fear being rejected, so you explain. You fear being misunderstood, so you explain. You fear not being enough, so you explain. Yet no amount of explanation dissolves the fear. It only feeds it. But when you let the fear be, when you stop justifying, you begin to see its illusion. When you stop explaining, people actually begin to respect you more. For they sense something different in you, a stillness, a self-possession. You no longer bend under the weight of their expectations. You no longer scramble for approval. And in that strength, they lean closer. They listen more carefully. They take you more seriously. This is not because you forced them to, but because your silence, your lack of apology speaks louder than your words ever could. People trust those who do not beg to be trusted. They respect those who no longer chase respect. Consider the great teachers, mystics, poets. They rarely explained themselves. They spoke in parables, riddles, poems. They left space for mystery, for they knew that truth is not transferred by explanation. It is awakened within you. To explain everything is to strip life of its wonder. To leave space is to allow discovery. When you stop explaining, you invite others into that space. Some will misunderstand, yes, some will turn away. But those who stay will meet you, not through explanation, but through presence. And presence My friend, is where real connection happens. Not in defense, but in being. Why do you feel the need to explain? It is because you believe you must earn your place. You think if they understand me, then I will belong. But belonging does not come from persuasion, it comes from authenticity. When you are authentic, some will resonate, others will not. That is the way of things. No tree in the forest is admired by every bird. No song is loved by every ear. And yet the tree still grows, the song still plays. When you stop explaining, you begin to live like this without permission, without apology, simply alive. And this changes everything. Your energy returns for explanation is exhausting, isn't it? To constantly edit yourself, rehearse yourself, defend yourself. It drains your spirit, but when you drop it, a new vitality appears. You no longer live in the courtroom of opinion. You walk out into the open air where life is not about proving, but about living. And you notice how much more natural you feel. You laugh more easily. You speak more directly. You rest more deeply. You have nothing to prove. And that, ironically, is what makes your presence more compelling. People are drawn to ease. When you cease explaining yourself, even conflict shifts. For many arguments are nothing but two people justifying themselves endlessly, trying to make the other surrender. But when you no longer play that game, the argument loses its fire. You do not need to win. You do not need to be right. You let the other hold their view and you keep your peace. Strangely enough, this disarms people. For what can they attack when there is no defense? The walls vanish and often a softer conversation begins. Silence in this way is not weakness. It is a quiet strength. Imagine someone saying to you, "I don't like who you are." The old reflex is to explain, but you don't understand. Here's why I am this way. Yet when you stop explaining, you realize you do not need to convince them. Their opinion belongs to them, not to you. You may respond, but you no longer plead. And in that freedom, you see the futility of trying to control what others think. For their thoughts are theirs, just as your life is yours. Some will say, but isn't explaining part of kindness, part of teaching? And yes, it can be. To explain with generosity is different from explaining with fear. A teacher shares not to defend themselves, but to illuminate. A lover shares not to justify, but to invite the other closer. The difference lies in the spirit. When you share freely without needing to be approved, your words carry lightness. When you explain out of fear, your words carry chains. The world feels the difference. So what we are speaking of is not silence in every case, but freedom from inner pleading. Many will ask you to explain why you stopped explaining. They will demand reasons, proof, justification for your lack of justification. And here too you see the trap. For the moment you comply, you are back in the old game. The real answer is not in words, but in presence. The tree does not explain why it grows. The river does not explain why it flows. And yet they teach more than 1,000 lectures. In the same way, your calm silence, your unshaken being becomes explanation enough. You are the living answer. This is not always easy. The habit of explaining is deep. It begins in childhood when parents demand reasons for every action. Why did you do that? Explain yourself. And so we learn early that love and safety are tied to justification. To stop explaining then feels almost rebellious, even dangerous. But notice, you are no longer a child. You do not need to earn your right to exist. You are already here. Life has already said yes to you, or you would not be breathing. No explanation can add to that yes, and no refusal can remove it. So each time you feel the urge to explain, pause. Ask yourself, am I sharing or am I pleading? Am I communicating or am I defending? This pause reveals the motive. And when you see the motive clearly, you can choose differently. You can smile and let the silence speak. You can answer simply without the long preface of apology. And each time you do, you strengthen the freedom within you. Over time, the compulsion fades. You no longer need to perform. You rest in the quiet confidence of being. This confidence is not arrogance. It is the humility of truth. For arrogance still shouts, "Look at me. I need you to know I'm right." Confidence whispers, I am here and that is enough. And people feel the difference. They are drawn to it. Not because you explained yourself into their hearts, but because your being radiates authenticity. We are all weary of masks, weary of pretenses. To meet someone unafraid to simply be is refreshing, magnetic. And so when you stop explaining, you paradoxically become more attractive, more trusted, more respected, not by chasing it, but by ceasing to chase, by letting others meet you as you are without defense. The world often misunderstands those who live this way. Some may call you distant, aloof, mysterious. But notice, their labels do not define you. They are simply reflections of their own discomfort with freedom. For when they see you not explaining, it reminds them of their own chains. Some will resist, others will awaken. Either way, you remain free. You do not explain to soothe their discomfort. You let them wrestle with it as they must. You show them the possibility of a different way of being, a way without apology. Your relationships shift. Some fall away for they were built only on the currency of explanation. Others deepen for they were waiting for your true presence. Your work changes. You no longer exhaust yourself proving your worth. You offer your gift directly, and those who see it respond. Your inner world transforms. You feel lighter, clearer, more alive, for the constant inner courtroom goes silent. And in that silence, you finally hear the music of life, not the noise of defense, but the melody of being. This is the freedom that awaits you. Trust that those who are meant to meet you will meet you with or without reasons. Trust that life does not demand justification, only participation. Trust that silence can speak more powerfully than defense. And when the urge arises to explain, smile gently, notice it, breathe and let it go. Speak only when it flows from clarity, not fear. In doing so, you discover a new way of being, one that is lighter, freer, more aligned with the natural flow of things. And perhaps you will stumble. You will find yourself explaining again, caught in old habits. Do not scold yourself. Smile. And remember, this too is part of the practice. Every step away from explanation is a step toward freedom. Over time, the need lessens, the silence grows, and you become more rooted in yourself. Like the tree, like the river, like the stars, you simply are. And the beauty of this is profound. For you no longer live to be understood. You live to be alive. Understanding, if it comes, is a gift. If it does not, nothing is lost. When you explain yourself, people rarely understand. When you stop explaining, they often understand more. For they sense the essence of you, uncluttered by defense. They feel the stillness beneath your words, the clarity of your presence, and that more than any argument awakens recognition. This is why great truths are not shouted, not justified, but embodied. You have spent so much of your life explaining yourself as though your existence required proof. But the truth is simpler, softer, deeper. You are here, and that is enough. Stop defending, stop pleading, stop rehearsing your worth. Live it. Speak when words are needed. Be silent when they are not. And trust that your being carries more weight than any explanation ever could. And when you live this way, everything changes. Not because the world finally understands you, but because you finally stop needing it to. That is real freedom.